I wanted to speak to you about Hispanic Heritage Month. So something that I want, because like I was doing a little research last night, and like this thought had kind of been in the back of my mind. Like, I understand when you're speaking to somebody like who speaks, like you can address somebody as like Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. Can you kind of explain some of that for me?
So Hispanic is the terminology that we use for Hispanic is people that come from Spain. So you include Spain and Latin America. That's what a Hispanic. And then Latino is if you come from Latin America. And Latinx is a new terminology that has been created in the last few years that, a lot of people will refer to Latinx.
Okay. Um, kind is because like I know with the culture like Latinx Unidos, is that like something that's kind of more like recent? Because like with
It
the
is recent, and there's some people that they don't like to use it. So there's like people that they don't use it, and people will refer more. Like if you ask me, what are you? Are you Hispanic or Latina? So I always, I'm Latina. I come from Latin America, but my ancestors also came from Spain. So I will refer as a Latina.
uh kind of speaking about like heritage and then kind of like ancestors, because I want to say, because really, how important is Hispanic Heritage Month for you? Like how, kind of like think of it more from like an Augustana perspective, kind of like, would you say it's like Augustana does a good job at kind of like offering like the knowledge for people to learn like about Hispanic heritage during this month?
I think that there have been some initiatives to show the community what is the Hispanic month. I think we should do a better job and kind of like educating people more about it because I think people have the sense that there's a celebration of the Hispanic month, but I don't think they know exactly what it is. Last year they had something that it was not celebrated during Hispanic month, but they were talking about the different independence from Central America. But I think it will be beneficial for the community to know more about it.
Yeah. And like something little different, because like for me, because like with February like being like Black History Month, because like I try my best to kind of like gain the knowledge that I feel like I should have. Like I found myself in February this year like learning some things about it like I never knew and stuff. Like I like to read articles. I like to try to discover some kind of new stuff, and like I kind of feel like it's somebody like I'm not Hispanic, but yet I still try to at least pay attention, try to learn some things about the month.
Yeah, I think, like I said, last week I was part of a panel where they brought leaders of the community as well as people from Augustana to talk about what it means to be Latino and how you can impact, especially the student population here, that we could be as like role models for these students. And we kind of like talked about our different experiences and how we have helped our community in different ways. But also yesterday there was a celebration of like Latin taste, kind of like we're trying to do little activities, kind of like for people to know that there's more than in Mexico, that we're like very there's a lot of countries in Latin America,
Yeah.
and of course Mexico has the biggest population in the United States
Oh.
compared to the other Latinos. So the three big Latino groups in the United States are the Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans. And so we want to educate everybody that, we're, even though we share the same language and everything, we're different.
Yeah. Um. Oh, I get you. Kind of like speaking, kind of like about like the differences in like, everything. I don't know if I remember this right. I remember. I think I read something somewhere that like, I'm pretty sure like Spanish is like the second most common spoken language in the United States.
Yes, it is. So there's almost 63 million Latinos in the United States. We are 18% of the U.S. total population, and Spanish is the second most spoken language here. And it's because we're the biggest minority, and you have people that come from all over. And obviously, by having such a big population, Spanish is the second language that is most spoken here.
Do you know what kind of like with the Augustana student body, with like how many students come from like Hispanic or Latino backgrounds?
I think there's a high percentage of like Latinos here compared to how it was like in the early 90s and 2000s. I think the college is working to attract more diversity. So I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but I would say it's more than like what, 10%? I'm not 100% sure because I asked a few weeks ago to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion exactly how many new Latinos were coming. So, but there is, you could feel a presence on campus that there's more Latino people.
Kind of like speaking about kind of like the present, because like earlier you mentioned like some of the activities. Can you like kind of elaborate a little bit more on some of those like activities? Like what are some of the things that you would do during like Hispanic Heritage Month and kind of like beyond? So like what are some of the things that you like happen during this month?
So during this month, I know that Latinos Unidos, they got together and they participated in the Mexican parade. So they try to be involved with the activities that the community has. And then here on campus, Latinos Unidos, like I said, last Friday, they hold that, it was like the first time they hold something like that, where it was like a talk from community leaders with Augie personnel to talk about what it means to be a Latino and, you know, and kind of like encourage the students to be better, you know, by providing, you know, information of what we have gone through. Then yesterday, the Office of International Services,
Yeah.
with the collaboration of Latinos Unidos and the advisors, Leticia Martina and myself, we came up with like a taste of Latin America. We would try to provide like different like snacks or appetizers or desserts from different parts. Sometimes it's hard because you cannot get everything, you know, but at least there were representation of Puerto Rico, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, you know, different things where people could like try their food.
With like some of the foods that you were, what kind of factors into the decision? Because like you said, it's hard to get everything, but like I'm sure there's might be some ways to say like, hey, we should try to have this or that.
So what we wanted to do was also like provide more than Mexican snacks or things. Obviously, like I said, they're the biggest group, and then we have more resources from Mexico here in the Quad Cities than like Venezuela or other places. But I offered to make a Venezuelan bread, what is called pan de jamon. It's a traditional bread that we make during Christmas. That it wasn't that hard to get the ingredients. But I think our vision was to have something bigger, but it's hard because you don't have the resources. It would have been different if we're located in Chicago, because in Chicago you can find more, or some of the things that we wanted to order were not gonna arrive on time from Amazon.
I understand. Kind of like because another kind of question that I had that I wanted to ask is like, how can like the students like Augustana like continue to learn about Hispanic culture, Hispanic Heritage Month, like not just during this time, but year round?
I think, you know, one of the things all these offices try to do, and also like in the Spanish department, like I'm a professor of Spanish, we try to educate, you know, through the different classes people take, you know, teaching them about culture. It's not just language, but it's teaching them our culture. And even in the 100 level, we talk about culture, you know, then you talk to 200, there's a class where it's 202, where we talk about Latinos in the U.S., all the contributions, all the things that the Mexicanos, Puerto Ricanos, and Cubans have done to be part of this great nation. And then the higher levels of Spanish. And I feel that there's always like an emphasis of, there's also a Hispanic film festival where there's like different movies from different parts of Latin America or Spain portrayed it, you know, kind of like for people to see that, yes, look at these movies, you know, it's like independent movies, but it's part of the Latino culture. So I think throughout the year, there's activities where we're trying to promote for students in the community to learn about what is being, what it means to be a Hispanic or a Latino.
I'm happy you mentioned like the Hispanic Film Festival because like doing a little research about it, I figured out kind of like when it is and like kind of some of the information to expect. Can you go like elaborate a little bit more about
Sure.
it?
So the Hispanic Film Festival has been here in our department, and is Professor Vasquez, Dr. Vasquez, who's in charge of it. So she will be the one that will go through the process of choosing the movies, buying the movies, getting all that together. And she has done it for many, many years. And it is, like I said, it's an event where you see the Ogie community as well with the Quad Cities community coming together to learn, because there's always like an informational meeting at the beginning. Each professor will talk about a little bit about the background of the movie, setting up like what the movie is about and everything, and then you will have the opportunity to watch the movie, and then at the end there could be some discussion. So I think that's something that it has worked. Obviously with the pandemic was not happening, and so we're excited that again we're going to hold it. And like I said, I have presented many movies, and I have seen that it's a good turnout because we promote it in our community, but it's also outside of like for the Quad Cities community.
And because if there's anything, because like being an Augustana student, I do feel like sometimes like certain activities, like they aren't really like broadcasted as well as they could be, because like there are certain things that I unfortunately kind of found out about last minute. It's like, oh, there's this going on this day, and like there's certain things like there might only be one flyer for it, and it's kind of good to know that like doing everything you can to broadcast about
I think
stuff like that.
like I said, I think Professor Vasquez and our department does a good job like promoting it. They will send invitations to the community leaders. They will like have posters all over our campus. I would say, I don't know if that put it on social media, because that's a way people will. And I think at the end, like I said, it has been a good turnout. If you compare, you will have a good numbers of students plus community members.
I understand.
And in class, we promote these movies. It's part of our curriculum too. You're learning about these places. Why don't you go and watch a movie that it takes you out sometimes out of your comfort zone? Because they're all different, All the movies are different.
And like when I was doing the research, with like the Hispanic Film Festival, the movies are going to be like they're going to be speaking Spanish. So there's going to be like English subtitles.
So there's subtitles, yeah. So you will hear the Spanish, but then there's subtitles, and especially because you're inviting, it is inclusive. You're inviting everyone. Anyone could come. It doesn't have to be that you speak Spanish or you're like Hispanic. It's just for everyone. It's for the Ogie community as well as for the Quad Cities community, and so it's an opportunity for people to learn more about different topics, and especially independent movies. It's different than like the movies made in Hollywood.
Yeah. Also kind of speaking about, because I recently had to do a project for one of my classes where I had to pick a film from a culture different from my own, kind of like analyze it. There was a lot of different like movies coming to mind, but when I kind of decided what I wanted to do, like I wanted to pick something simple that I could write about, and like also something I've seen before. So then like I went to rewatch the movie so I could think about it differently. And the movie I wanted to do was Coco, which I thought was, because I've seen it several times before, and I'm a huge fan of the movie, and I thought it would be kind of a good thing to write about. But kind of really what I want to ask you is about like with the Hispanic Film Festival, like is this something that kind of only happens really just like once, or is it kind of happen kind of throughout the year?
So it's once a year.
Okay.
So it's an event that happens once a year. And like I said, it's like it has been proven that it works. It's one of those, it has been around for 26 years. So she has been doing this for the last 26 years. And like I said, if you have the opportunity, you should go in and experience one of these movies, because you see how there's that element of like bringing people together.
Kind of diverting back a little bit, because like I wanted to ask you, like, we'll reiterate about like Augustana with like during this time and kind of just throughout the year. You mentioned earlier about like there are some things that you think Augustana can kind of do better with kind of like some of the activities that are being held and kind of just like not representation exactly, but like kind of like how kind of getting the word out with some things. But like, and you also mentioned kind of like you'd like to see some like things changed or like things added on. Can you like, do you mind sharing one of those things that like you would like to see here?
I feel that, when I see how, like, maybe to bring a speaker, when I see like the celebration of Martin Luther King or something like that, I would like to bring like somebody, which they had tried to bring people, but I think, somebody who's like known, like a Latino who's known in the community. I think that would be good. Because I don't think we had that, to bring a great speaker to campus to talk about what it means to be a Latino, like, I feel that with the Black Month celebration, I see more. So I think, it takes time to put all these things together, and I think eventually we're in the right direction. But I would like to see something bigger, that represents that we are those 63 million people in the United States.
Yeah, and to kind of like I think like bringing a speaker here would be an amazing idea, and to kind of speak, because like I'm also part of ASI, Associated Colleges of Illinois, and then like there was a lot even between my freshman year, my sophomore year, and a lot of guest speakers had come, and I remember one last year I had went to. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but essentially kind of like came to speak about how like essentially being Black in the Quad Cities, what he was saying, like, everything was powerful. And just really just my 3 years here, being able to listen to some of these speakers, like I've learned a lot. I've even went to guest speakers who kind of talk about things I'm not interested in, and yet I still went because like I went for two reasons. One, it can't hurt. And two, like on the days where those happened, like other than taking care of my responsibility as a student, I didn't have anything else going on anyway. So like taking an hour or two of my time to kind of listen to what these speakers have to say doesn't hurt, and it can only open your eyes to stuff like this.
I agree with you, because even last week when we were sitting in the panel, I think we all share the different experience we have gone through of being Latinos, and having the students there listening to this information. That could be powerful. It could be used for their advantage. It's great. You want to hear what other people have gone through, and what other opportunities they can help you with. Like and if you bring these people, there's the networking. They give you ideas. And if I feel that we should do that more often, to bring like community leaders or people being at the national level, kind of to represent.
With like bringing in like people like the national level or like community, would you have to? I wouldn't know how to personally like organize something like that. Or would you kind of have to reach out, like for a community leader example? Would you have to reach out to them and try to coordinate? Like, how would something like that kind of work?
I feel sometimes like there's people like having like a good network, and there's people like again, there's people in this campus that have community ties to these leaders. And so I think that's how these people have been brought to campus, because there's a connection with a member of the Augustana community. And, and sometimes they don't even charge you for anything. They just want to come and help the students, because we all go through these different things in our lives, and we want the future generations to do better. And changes, life have changed so much. And I feel that when you hear these people telling you what they have gone through and giving you advice how to better your life, why not? And I feel that we had such a small panel Friday, but there were things that came out that I think, you could kind of like look to people like a role model, or if she did it, why not? Why can I not do it?
I can say it's amazing to hear stuff like that, and kind of like stuff that like with that, like how I kind of motivate myself, because like with like my family members, or like when I went to like the guest speakers and kind of like listen to what they have to say, and it's kind of what I use as motivation to get me through this assignment, or when I played sports to push through to the next play, is like, if so and so can do it, why can't I?
And that's what, one of the things he said. So in our panel, there were 4 people, and 2 of us kind of like, one came from Mexico, and he was, I think he was 8 years old, and he had to learn English. And the same thing with me. I came here older than that, but the language barrier was hard. So I always tell people, it's not easy coming to the United States, because then you have to learn the language. You think you speak English, but you don't. So it is hard when you not only have to adapt to the culture, but you also have to learn the language. And then another thing I said was like, I always wanted to maintain my identity. When people ask me where you're from, I'm from Venezuela. That I'm very proud to be a Venezuelan, and that's something that I have always tried to maintain, that I love the U.S., and I feel that I always say this, unlike the salad bowl theory, where, the salad bowl, instead of like the melting pot, everybody melts together. Mm-hmm. With the salad bowl, you combine all these different veggies. You put the lettuce, you put the tomatoes, you put the green peppers, you put whatever you put in your salad, but you maintain your essence. And that's what I have tried to do, to, maintain where I came from. But I have always learned and adapt to this new culture.
I think that's a really powerful way to look at it. And I really like that, because in one of my classes recently, we started talking about like the melting pot theory and the salad bowl theory. And like, without knowing the terminology for it, like I'd known about something like that, I just would not have identified it with the term really until like recently. And kind of something else I want to ask, like, you is kind of like about like your background, where you come from, like how you mentioned you're proud to be from Venezuela. How important is it for you during, say, like Hispanic Heritage Month and kind of year round, to celebrate your culture, your background?
So what I said in that panel Friday was, I teach everyone about Latin America. Even when I was a student here at Augustana, I think I did it, but that wasn't the purpose. Whenever I had an assignment, I always wanted to do something about Latin America. If it was choosing a poet, I would choose a poet from Latin America. If it was something, it was always like teaching people about the different things that make us unique. And so obviously I teach different levels of Spanish, but my area is Latin America. And what I do is I try to provide people with the information and kind of like break the stereotype, because you hear a lot of things on the news. And then I'm like, no, I want you to provide you with 2 sides. And I want you to know that we are hardworking people. We come to this country because we believe in the American dream, even though there's people that think that the American dream doesn't exist. I will disagree, because I think it's something personal. I will say that everybody that came from my family from Venezuela to the United States, we all came with with student visas, and we all study. And, we got educated, we learned the language, we have adapted to this society, but we have always kept our identity. Being Venezuelan for me is like, it's part of who I am. Obviously, the next one would be I'm a Latina woman. But if somebody will ask me, I try to teach people that there's more than what you hear on the news, that we're a great region that has a lot of amazing things, and I do it every day because it's part of my job, and I want to educate people that we are very different. Even though we all speak Spanish, we're very different. Everybody thinks that, oh yeah, you eat spicy food. I say, no, I come from South America. And in South America, we don't eat spicy food. Oh, but you don't. I'm like, no, that's in Mexico. Or you eat burrito. No, I don't eat burrito. I eat arepa. So I try to break those stereotypes little by little and teach the students that we're like very different.
And if there's anything I learned in high school Spanish and my year of Spanish here, it is that Spanish is like speaking Spanish is very different because like if there's anything I learned in your class, like a word you might use in one country might mean something different in another country. And like my older siblings, like when I decided I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish, it was like hearing them speak it and like speak Spanish, and it was like I couldn't understand them at the time. I was like, I want to know what they're saying. It's like I'm being left out. And so when it was my time to learn Spanish, like, you know, like I'd learn, and then like occasionally if I needed their help, like I'd ask them for help. And then like kind of a little bit as I got older, like especially coming here, and it's like really I got the even bigger understanding of how like Spanish is different. It's not the same wherever you go. Like kind of like with the stereotypes you mentioned. And unfortunately, I believe like it's hard to break stereotypes. It's very, very hard. And some of them, it's unfortunate that some stereotypes that come to be about certain groups of people. And if there's anything that really just I've learned is that there's always two sides of a story. And that's something my parents continue to teach me to this day. And so really when I'm learning something, I try my best to learn both sides of the story. So it's like I hear what person A is saying. Now it's here to hear what person B is saying, because I feel like if I only listen to one side, I'm missing out on a lot of knowledge.
And that's what I say to the students. I said, you know, we're like three nations. We're so different. Yes, we have things in common. We all like to eat rice and different beans, and we speak Spanish. But it depends where you come from. The way we speak Spanish is different. Even the food could be different. What we listen to is different. You know, it's like music. It depends what part of the region you are in. Is different. And so that's what I try to do. And it's right. You're right about that. It's hard to break those stereotypes, but the more information you get and the more aware you are, I think you start changing little, you know, when you have that information provided to you. I think it's one of the things I try to say to the students is like, I try to play different videos where people speak differently and say, can you notice the difference? Sometimes they don't notice that, but the more they do it, it's like, yeah, she speaks really fast, and then she's slow, and then you could hear like the Spanish accent that is very thick from Spain. And so I want people to be aware that we're different people, and that has to be respected, because, you know, it's like, are you Mexican? No, I'm from Venezuela. Where are you from Africa? Like, no. Do you speak Mexican? No, I speak Spanish. And so it's hard to deal with that. But I think the more you do it, and especially having so many people in this country, like 63, people are going to get to know that we're all very different.
Yeah. And kind of from my, like, being a student here, it's definitely the most I've ever been exposed to different cultures. And, like, Spanish, African, a lot of different other countries, and like it's the most I've ever experienced. Like where I went to high school, and it wasn't that there were not a lot of like students from different cultures in my high school. It's just that coming here, it's like celebrating every culture possible. And it's not that a high school can't do that. It's just that like I get to meet people from countries that I would never have thought I would have met, or I get to learn things. Something that there was like I believe it was about a month ago now. It was the Moon Festival by the Asian Food Organization, which like in high school, I would have not known anything about because my high school didn't do something, at least to my knowledge, they did not do something like that. But like here I went to it and it's like, I learned a lot. And like, I like to try to go to the different events like different like cultural groups do so I can learn. And it was like me being me, I love food. And so like, kind of like getting to taste like food from different cultures, I think that's, you know, a nice touch.
You know what I always say? I say you have food and music, and you're going to bring different types of people, and that will unite people, food and music. And one of the things that I feel that Augustana is doing great is like trying to like not portray or show that there's students from different parts of the world and that they're very unique, and we want them to learn about it. And I went to that festival too, and, you know, it's like, even me, you know, you learn something new every day, and I feel that it's so powerful because, you know, you're proud of who you are, especially the Asian students, you know, they have their festival, but then they're showing the Ogi community, the Quad Cities community, what this festival is all about. And like you said, trying different food, it's great. So I feel that with having so many international students, we're trying to educate other people that, we're very unique in our own way, but, that it's good that people learn different cultures.
I agree 100%. Like, I could not have said it better myself. And slowly starting to transition to wrap up a little bit. Are there any traditions kind of like during like Hispanic Heritage Month that you look for, or just really a part of your culture in general that you kind of look forward to? Maybe if there's a specific day or specific meal.
Like I said, one of the things I have always said is like we should have like a festival of all the nations from Latin America, or like Hispanoamerica, Spain and Latin America, where you show like your food or your dance and things like that, but that's a lot of work. Kind of like, because you wouldn't have representation from every country. But one thing we did, even when I was in elementary school back in Venezuela, we had it was the day of El Día Panamericano, where pretty much we all dressed up representing another culture from Latin America. So I remember my mom had this dress made for me, and I represented Uruguay. And then I learned about Uruguay, even though I was from Venezuela, I learned. So I think it would be great having like people representing a country that is not their own, kind of like learning what they go through.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And like, I don't remember exactly what grade I was in. I just remember might have been like third grade. We had like, we dressed up as someone.
Was it the president? No,
it might have been presidents or like some sort of like historical figure. Mm-hmm. I believe I dressed up as, I can't think of his name right now. Oh, I dressed up as Martin Luther King. And then I gave I didn't give the entire I Have a Dream speech, but that was part of how my assignment went. But it was pretty cool to dress up, and like, even though third grade for me was so long ago, I still feel like that was still a really cool experience to have.
Like I said, I always remember, and I look back through these pictures, and I said, whenever I look at Uruguay, I always remember, I wore your costume. I kind of like learned through it, and I think that would be great, having people learning about other cultures. Because, I could stand there, teach them, show them. But if it is your own project where you kind of have to like learn yourself, and that's what I try to do sometimes with the projects I assign. I said, let's do something that you think you're going to use, or something that you're going to enjoy. Instead of me telling you what to do, it's like, let's come up with ideas. And, it's like music. People want to know what different musics they listen to, or food, It's like, let's break the stereotype, and let's learn that in Chile, they eat something different than Venezuela. And so all these different things, I think, is great when people learn, instead of me like teaching them.
I agree like 100%. And I feel like kind of really with me and like with how I learn, like when multiple perspectives are brought into play, I feel like that can open up somebody's eyes even more, when it's, because there's things that I've learned just like, it could be about one of my classes, maybe with how this theory works. And then like when they're bringing in like making that theory even bigger with like multiple perspectives of like maybe the positives you can see with this theory or the negatives, it's like, whoa, this theory is way bigger than I thought.
I want students to take something out of the project or something, at the end, what did you learn? I don't want you to like memorize, because I think everybody wants to get an A and you want to memorize everything. No, I of course I want you to get an A, but for me it's more about what you learn. What did you learn? If I ask you later on, do you still remember what you learned? For me, it's more about what people maintain, what they keep, instead of memorizing it.
If there's any, like, being in your class 2 years, if there's anything that I really like, funny story, back home, my next door neighbors, they only speak Spanish. And so, like, when I was house, they speak no Spanish at all. And so, like, they called me downstairs to translate. They had their daughter, kind of who speaks a little bit of English, mostly speaking Spanish. I couldn't quite understand everything that they were saying, but I can get the general point. And like, really just what, like, they were saying words like I knew of, but I wouldn't use those exact words. And so like I would tell like, hey, they're trying to say, can you help us with doing this task? Like we really need an extra set of hands. Really just understanding that there are different words for certain things. And so like I might not know this word to say this thing. I know a similar word. And like my older brother, because like he's trying to be a more fluent speaker in Spanish. And so like before my birthday, like he does Duolingo often. And so like we were bowling and then I was like, Jared, do my Duolingo for me. And so like he's gotten so far into it where it's like I have to like, oh man, I really had to think. And so it's like, you know what? I think I should really try to get back and try to learn, because like learning how to speak, because like even though I know Spanish, I know how to speak Spanish, it's like learning how to speak Spanish and kind of being able to have a conversation with somebody, like that's always been my goal. And like one day I'd say if I really practice hard enough, I might be able to like maybe give a presentation in Spanish, or with some of the things, like maybe if I'm ever on TV, to speak in Spanish.
But it's persistence, it's like, it's about what you want. But I feel, it's like I was thinking that in 1 or 2 last semester, the students decided that the final project was to make a dessert or an appetizer from Latin America, and they all came up with, different recipes and everything. And the point of this presentation or this project was for them to learn, about the ingredients, to use their vocab from chapter A, which is like La Comida, using the grammar they have learned, but also like the cultural, element. Why do they eat these cookies in Bolivia? Why are they so special? Or, and so everybody came up with different recipes. And at the end, they say, you know what? It was fun. Thank you. Now we know how to make something new that is not from the U.S. I'm looking forward to make it for my family. And so it was like a process that everybody enjoyed. And then everybody brought what they made to class. And it was kind of like, I was amazed to see that some of these people made amazing cookies, empanadas, pico de gallo. It was like, whoa, and it was something that they enjoyed and I enjoyed. And at the end, everybody was happy, because that's what you want. You want people to learn and take ownership and use it. And so they did. And then one group decided that they wanted to make arepas, Colombian arepas. And I said, well, I might as well make Venezuelan arepas. So we went to Casa Latina. And everybody had the opportunity to make arepas. And I even have the pictures. And it was so funny because, it's like, who was going to think that my students were going to be making arepas? But it was fun, It's like you want to show them that it's more than that you want them to experience what the culture is, what people will eat. And being part of the process of making it was fun. And then everybody eating it.
That does really sound fun, and I'm glad to hear that you and like everyone else involved really enjoyed it. But is there anything else that you'd like to kind of add on about really not just Hispanic Heritage Month, but really just like Hispanic or like Latino culture?
I always, I said how hardworking our community is, and that sometimes when people say, oh, they come here and take our jobs, I said, the Latinos are underpaid. They don't get what they should get. But I think, that is changing. You see more people going to college. People are getting more educated. They're learning English, because I always feel that something that is that is a disadvantage for the Latino community is not knowing English. People should learn how to speak English. And of course, they should never forget where they come from. Be proud of who they are. And that's something that I do. I feel proud of where I come from and what I have done so far. And of course, there's always room for improvement, but I feel that we have a generation that is looking forward to changes, and they're working hard. And I always say to all my students, it doesn't matter if they're Latino or no, I said, you all complain about the system. It is time for you to be part of the system. You need to advocate. If you want something to change, you have to do something. Stop complaining, but let's get to work, because I think anything is possible. And if you look history, it's always the younger generations who will make a change. And I always, think about Martin Luther King is like, yes, you have a dream, but if you want the dream to come true, you have to work hard. And then, sometimes people are like, oh, violence. I say, no, we're not going to get things done through violence. And especially because there's that stereotype, they're all violent. No, I want to show you that we're better than that. That I think at the end, if we all work together, things could happen.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I agree. I am somebody who believes that anything is possible, and that's something that I try to use as a motivator to also to get myself out of the bed, because there are some days I wish I could just roll back over, lay to sleep, but at the same time, it's like if I don't, a lot of the things that I need to do, they're gonna suffer, take a hit, and then when I get to them, I'm gonna be even more stressed at the end of the day. But I think, I'm really glad about taking the time to learn more about these things, because I didn't know as much, and I learned a lot from this. So if anything, I'd like to say thank you.
You're welcome. And then Latino, it was recognized by the U.S. government. We need to give the Latino community a month because they're part of the U.S. And like I said, years ago when this became kind of like a law, like a declaration, the Hispanic month. Now it's like, look how many of us are here, and every day there's more people coming. So there has to be giving honor to these people who have come to this nation and work hard and adapt. And it's funny because last night I was going through Twitter, and there was this guy who said, oh, this is what I like about President Reagan, how he was saying how people came to this country, how immigrants came here, and how they learn to live here and how they love this nation. And I think, this is a place where there's many opportunities if you work hard for it. It's not perfect. There's nothing perfect in life. But I think this is the land of opportunities.
I want to give a big thank you to Professor Colmenares for joining me on today's episode of the Augustana Observer podcast. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to tune in to the next episode. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.